Perfect. So when I was outside, I was talking to some folks, and a lot of them were really excited for the Biohub here in New York, like pretty excited. So I want to start off by first asking you, like, tell me a bit about your excitement about the Biohub.
I'm super excited, but that's also part of who I am. I'm excited about everything. So, but the Biohub in particular, because it is really a remarkable new model to do science. It's a remarkable new model because it allows you to put together what you would consider a dream team, which is very difficult to do with the conventional funding approaches. And it allows you to have a launch ramp of 10, 15 years, which is really necessary to think strategically about what you want to do.
Now, tell me a bit about how you first got involved with this. I mean, tell us about your background, and then how did you get tapped for this position?
Well, I got involved because about 3 years ago there was this RFA, request for proposal, or by RFP, by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to sort of follow up on the model in San Francisco with proposal for crazy ideas that nobody would be able to accomplish over a short period, but maybe could change the way in which we think about life sciences or health over the long period. And so I think there were like more than 150 universities and research centers that participated. I don't know exactly how many proposals, but we were selected, Columbia and Yale and Rockefeller. We were selected about the semi-finalist. And so that's when I actually became involved, because that vision was like a 30,000-foot vision, yes. And now we had to bring it down to reality. Right. And sort of what I've done over the last few years is to build novel initiatives, novel companies, novel departments, et cetera.
So you were just telling us a bit about the past few years, but take us back even further. What is your story here? I mean, we were talking about this earlier. You told me you started off in physics. How'd you end up in immunology?
Yeah, so normally you define people by sort of the field in which they're in. I'm kind of defined more by a trajectory across fields, because I've gone from physics to computer science. I was at IBM Research for 13 years, started a first group in computational biology, then moved on to actually start my own experimental lab at Columbia, started 4 companies in biotech, the last one hopefully working really well. And then in the last 10 years, first in what's called system pharmacology, and then now for the last 5 years in clinical trials. And so, it's basically been a trajectory, and you can think of me as a jack of all trades and a master of none, or you may think of me as somebody who tries to embed the idea of really multidisciplinary science.
Now, why immunology?
Well, so remember Star Trek Space, The Next Frontier? I think immunology is
the next frontier. Why is that? Why is it the next frontier?
Well, it's the next frontier because an immune system has been created throughout, it's been sort of evolved throughout evolution to defend us from things that happened before we actually reach our reproductive age. Now you have to think about 200,000 years ago, because it takes about that time to fix the genetics in a population. What was the average age of reproduction? So maybe you're thinking about somebody 15 to 20 years old, hominid. So everything that happens after that is really not taken care of by the immune system. But the potential is there. It's the only set of cells that reaches every single organ in our body, and the only set of cells that actually can fix diseases on contact. And there's nothing else that can do that. It's like, so when we think about what drugs can do, the immune system in many cases does it better. It repairs wounds, it defends us from infection, defends us from cancer, but not from things that it has not been already trained to see. And so what we want to do is really retrain the immune system, almost like having if you want, evolution in a test tube. Want to train the immune system to recognize things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson or cancers that actually are developed in later stages of life.
So what can people in this room kind of expect to come out from the Biohub in terms of immunology? Like, what is it exactly you all are doing, and what are some of the goals you're hoping to accomplish?
Well, the first goal is to put together the dream team and to actually have a place where we can actually host them. So we're hopefully close to having a decision on that, and we have to recruit more than 50 people over the next 3 years, and we have to fund about 20 investigators outside of the Biohub. And what are the goals that we want to accomplish? I mean, the first thing, we have to decipher the language that the immune system uses to tell us what it has seen, right? And so that language is there. It's just not being used necessarily to see the things we want to see, but it's there. And in some ways, also how to write what the immune system has seen into a DNA memory through bioengineering that can then be harvested later on, so that you can go to a doctor's office and through a simple blood draw, you can actually figure out what are the organs that are doing well, what are the organs that are not doing well. So think of what we're trying to do as building a mega cellular endoscope that is going to be completely non-invasive.
So why New York? I mean, you said you're building your dream team. Is this where all the talent is? Why New York City?
Well, New York City is not where all the talent is, but it's certainly one of the places where it's one of the highest concentration of talent. There's like more than 18 research institutions that are absolutely at the top of the charts in terms of the NIH funding they get, the quality of the investigators they have. I think, don't quote me on that, but I think it's the largest number of Nobel Prizes in the nation in terms geographically, and just the amount of, I would say, cultural exchange that there is. For instance, one thing that we never talk about is how multi-ethnic, multi-cultural the cohorts that we have in New York are. And so when you want to study biology in a way that transcends from the typical canonical sort of white man of European descent, this is the place to do it. So by harvesting the cohort that are already been developed at Columbia and Yale, and many other institutions that we'll collaborate with, we're essentially going to be able to do that.
And you were saying a little bit about figuring out where this is going to be. Do you know yet? Do you have some idea of where in the city?
We have some pretty good idea. We want to create an environment where the scientists will really feel like they have a campus experience, and so they can walk and talk to other scientists. They can access facilities that can do things for them. So we have a pretty good idea.
Are you thinking like Upper East Side? Are you thinking? What are you thinking?
I cannot divulge that information yet.
Let's try to make some news here.
Very strong negotiation right now.
No problem. So tell me a bit more about the kind of people you're hoping to recruit for this. How are you building that dream team?
Well, so first of all, there are certain categories that we absolutely need to staff, and this is the beauty of being able to put together a dream team, right? So we need people that know intimately how to engineer immune cells. Immune cells are particularly hard to engineer because there are certain techniques. You were talking about CRISPRs. There are certain techniques that work well in other cells, not so well in immune cells. But nonetheless, there are very talented scientists that have been able to do that. Actually, some of them are very much here in New York. And so that's one thing. The other thing that we need to do is we need to create environments where we can actually test the things we're doing by putting together sort of AI, computer science, and experimental biology are actually in fact working. So we're now at a point where what we predict computationally is about 80% chance of being validated experimentally, but you still need to do that. And so being able to build what we call organs on a chip, for instance, or humanized mouse models where you can actually replace the immune system of a mouse with the immune system of a human being is going to be absolutely critical, because in this way we're going to be able to see that when we say we've built the immune cells that can go to the pancreas, we can actually see that that cell actually goes to the pancreas. And this is going to be critical to our success.
So it sounds to me like you're open to taking in people from multiple disciplines in that respect. It sounds like you would hire someone who has maybe a background in physics, became a computer scientist, worked at IBM, did some startups, and such. Tell me a bit about that multidisciplinary. Why is that important?
Well, so you can have multidisciplinarity in a single box. And to some extent, I said that describes a little bit what I've done over 30 years, 40 years now that I'm in science. But the more fun is to actually put people that have absolutely deep knowledge in one discipline in the same room with people that have very deep knowledge in another discipline who would never talk to each other. Or actually, if they try to talk, they would not understand a word of what the other person is saying. So this requires some sort of language transformational tools that allows people to kind of mediate the conversation. I mean, a typical example, so I've run into many groups, for instance, that want to predict what the cell is going to do using, say, AI, right? And you realize that, yes, this is absolutely going to be the frontier, and we're going to be able to do it. And this is actually one of the absolute key priorities we're going to have at the Biohub in collaboration with CZI. But you need to have a team that actually understands the biology and a team that understands the AI in order to be able to do that. You just can't do that with either one or the other alone.
Wonderful. Well, I think we're at time now. So thank you so much for this really engaging conversation. And thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Califano.